Welcome to Brave Awareness. I'm Ronn Pawo McLane, meditation teacher, author, and poet, and someone who's done their fair share of surviving. This podcast isn't here to teach you how to fix yourself. It's here to remind you that you're not broken. These are spoken transmissions for modern minds, reflections, disruptions, and sacred interruptions. Let's begin. I want to tell you something about the way my mind works. When I walk into a room where something is wrong, where someone is struggling, where a situation is unresolved, where tension is sitting in the air that nobody has named yet, something in me locks on immediately. Not to the feeling in the room, but instead to the solution. My brain starts moving rapidly, running the problem forward, backward, anticipating the obstacles, generating the options, building the roadmap. By the time the other person is finished telling me what's happening, I already have 3 possible answers and a preferred path. And then I offer it. Because the fastest way to relieve the stress I'm witnessing, and honestly, the stress I'm feeling in response to witnessing it, is to resolve it. For some of us, this is genuinely wired in rather than chosen. The brain that cannot easily stand down from a problem once it is locked on. The nervous system that experiences someone else's unresolved pain is its own activation and reaches for a fix as a regulation strategy. But whether it's wired in or learned or some combination of both, the pattern looks the same from the outside, and it has a name. It's called overfunctioning. And here's what nobody tells you about it. It does not feel like overfunctioning when you are doing it. It feels like caring. It feels like competence. It feels like being the person who shows up fully when everyone else is standing around waiting for someone to do something. It feels like love. Until it doesn't. Overfunctioning is what happens when one person in a system, a relationship, a family, a workplace, a friendship, consistently takes on more than their share of the thinking, the managing, the anticipating, and the resolving. It is the person who has already thought of every possible problem before the meeting starts, who manages the logistics that nobody asked them to manage, who prepares for every contingency so that nobody else has to feel the discomfort of things going wrong, who gives more than was asked for and then quietly notices that nobody is giving the same back. It shows up in obvious places. The parent who does everything for a child who is perfectly capable of doing it for themselves. The partner who handles every practical detail of a shared life because waiting for the other person to do it creates more anxiety than just doing it. The friend who always has the answer, always has the plan, always has the resource you need before you've finished even asking. And it shows up in subtler places too. The person who cannot sit with someone else's pain without trying to fix it. Who cannot witness a struggle without immediately offering a solution. Who experiences another person's unresolved problem as something that requires their intervention before it has been established that intervention is even wanted. The last one is the one I know the best. Because there is a version of overfunctioning that looks exactly like care and lands exactly like control. Not because the intention is controlling, but because the effect is. When you move towards someone's problem faster than they have invited you in, you have taken something from them, whether you meant to or not. You've taken the space to find their own way through it. Overfunctioning does not come from nowhere. It is learned, and it is almost always learned early. For many overfunctioners, the origin is a childhood environment where things felt unpredictable or unsafe unless someone was managing them, where the adults in the room were not reliably handling what needed to be handled, where a child learned that the way to reduce anxiety, their own and everyone else's, was to become the person who saw the problems coming and got ahead of them. That child became very good at it. They got praised for it. They got relied on for it. Their competence and their anticipation and their helpfulness became part of how they understood their own value. And the nervous system that learned to regulate through fixing and managing and resolving never got the memo that the original threat is long gone. So it keeps doing what it learned to do. In relationships where it's not needed, in situations where nobody asked for it, in moments where the most loving thing available would be to simply be present rather than useful. This is capacity and conditioning in one of its most intimate expressions. A pattern that was adaptive once, that kept something safe or stable or livable running in a context where it is no longer serving the person it belongs to. And here's the part that is hardest to see from inside the pattern. The overfunctioning is not just about the other person. It's about your own nervous system's need to not feel the discomfort of witnessing unresolved pain. The fixing is as much for you as it is for them, which means what looks like selfless giving is also underneath a form of self-regulation. That is not a condemnation. That is just the honest picture of what's going on. The cost of overfunctioning is rarely visible until it has been accumulating for a long time. The first cost is resentment. It arrives quietly and builds slowly. You gave more than was asked. You anticipated needs that were never acknowledged. You solved problems that nobody thanked you for solving. And at some point, the generosity starts to curdle because the giving was never balanced by receiving, and the effort was never matched by the people you were working so hard to help. The second cost is relationship damage that looks mysterious from the outside. The person you have been overfunctioning for often does not feel helped. They feel managed, anticipated, pre-solved. There is a subtle but real message embedded in overfunctioning that says, I do not trust you to handle this yourself. Most people feel that message even when they cannot name it, and it creates distance rather than closeness. The third cost is the one I think about the most. You are rarely just present. You are almost never simply in the room with someone experiencing what they are experiencing, letting it be what it is without immediately moving to fix it. The scanner is always running. The part of you that is looking for what needs addressing never fully rests. And presence, real, unhurried, not trying to fix everything presence, is often the only thing the person in front of you actually needed. The solution you arrived with was never the point. The fact that you stayed was. Now, I want to be honest with you about something before I offer the practice. Putting down the overfunctioning is not a decision you make once. It is not a switch that you flip. For those of us whose nervous systems learned this pattern early and deeply, it is a practice in the most literal sense. Something you return to again and again, usually after noticing you've already picked it back up. What it starts with is a pause. A single moment between the problem appearing and your movement towards solving it. Just enough space to ask one question. Did they ask me for this? Did they ask me for this? Not did they need it, not could I help, not would this be better if I fixed it. Did they ask? Because sometimes the answer is yes, and the help is genuinely wanted, and the solution you have is exactly what the moment calls for. Overfunctioning is not about never helping. It's about learning to wait for the invitation before you walk through the door. And sometimes when you wait, what you discover is the person in front of you was not stuck. They were processing. They were finding their own way. And what they needed from you was not an answer, but a witness. Putting down the overfunctioning does not make you less caring. It makes the care you offer more honest, because it is no longer partly about managing your own discomfort. It's actually about them. This week, I want to give you one question and one invitation. The question to carry into every situation you feel the pull toward fixing. Did they ask me for this? That is it. Simple and direct. Not a judgment of your impulse, just a pause between the impulse and the action. Long enough to check whether you are moving towards something that was invited or something that your nervous system decided was needed. And now for the invitation. Find one moment this week where someone you care about is struggling with something. And instead of moving toward a solution, just stay. Be present. Let them feel that you are with them in it without needing to get them out of it. See what happens. Not to them, to you. Notice what it feels like to not fix something. To let the discomfort of witnessing sit without reaching for a resolution. That discomfort is the thing worth getting curious about. Because that is where the overfunctioning lives. Not in helping, in the feeling that you are trying to make stop. I have been the person in the room with the solution since I was very young. It served me well for a long time. It made me useful and reliable and someone people came to when things needed sorting. It also meant I was rarely just there. Rarely just a person in the room with another person. Present without an agenda. Available without already being 3 steps ahead. Learning to put that down, even partially, even imperfectly, even just long enough to ask whether I was invited before walking through the door, has changed more about how I move through relationships than almost anything else I have practiced. Because the people I love do not need me to fix their lives. They need me to be in them. Next week, we go somewhere that I think a lot of people have been waiting for this season without knowing it. The body. What it knows before the mind catches up, and why the practice has to live there first before it can live anywhere else. Eyes open, compass steady. That's enough for today. If this opened something for you, stay close. You can subscribe, share it, or just sit with what stirred. Brave awareness isn't a destination, it's a return. I'll meet you there again soon.